Today we're going to be talking about the clean living lifestyle. So I'm so excited to be with y'all today. Happy Friday. I know that it takes a lot of commitment to attend a wellness webinar on a Friday afternoon, so thank you so much for being here. My name is Abby Horton, and I am your wellness class educator. I'm also a registered nurse, and I teach here on the faculty at CCN, the Capstone College of Nursing, and I am also a health and life coach. So I have a certification in health and life coaching, and I'm also a WellBEMA ambassador for the Honors College. So it's a privilege to be here. I have my email address on this slide. So if you want to reach out or you ever have questions, you're welcome to do so. I'm happy to help if you need any resources or just need to touch base. So the webinar goals for today, we are going to be exploring the clean living lifestyle. We're also going to be discussing the importance of the clean living lifestyle and the impact that it can have on our health. And then we're going to learn some specific strategies to help us adopt a more clean living lifestyle. So I know that with so many of you on the call, you probably all came with different expectations or questions or topics that you're interested in. And, you know, we could teach an entire semester's worth of content on this one topic. So if you have a question or a topic that you wanted to get answered or discussed, and we haven't covered it or you need more information, please feel free to put a question in the Q&A box or even a comment in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the session, and we'll hope to get to those at the very end. So my disclaimer is that this is just for educational purposes only, and this doesn't serve as medical advice, but I will be giving you a lot of information today, so I want you to know to really how to filter that information. So when we talk about some of the things today, those, topics like clean product swaps and toxins and things can be really triggering or overwhelming for some people. So I want you to focus on what you can control. I want you to take what resonates with you and leave the rest behind. So not everything is for everybody. And remember that baby steps are important. So small progress is still progress. And please do reach out if you have questions. So what is the clean living lifestyle? There could be many definitions here, but just simply, clean living is all about focusing on intentional, healthy choices in our diet, our lifestyle, and our cleaning products. So we're going to be really looking at our diet, our body, our household, and the choices that we make when we think about products and things that we use every day. So I think it really starts with mindset. So I put a start here or a GPS pin for you to know that mindset is really what you need to focus on before you even start researching the clean living lifestyle. So, educate yourself beyond just this webinar and really start to read and research, because everyone is going to start their journey with this material at a different place. And so you want to be kind to your brain and your budget by starting small and really not focusing on the big picture, because you could get overwhelmed. We're going to talk about ditching and switching different products today. So maybe ditch and switch one habit or one product at a time. Give yourself a lot of grace, because this is a journey, and we know that you're going to, incrementally make different choices once you know that there are some things that you might want to change. So when we think about toxins, I don't want you to equate toxins and chemicals, because they're not really interchangeable in that way. But in conversation, we often talk about, chemicals being toxic. Well, we have chemical compounds in our bodies that naturally occur that aren't harmful. They're actually necessary. And so when you think about, chemical-free living, that's not a term that I really use, because we can't live without chemicals. Even our water, the foods that we eat are all a result of chemical compounds. And so don't let that scare you. Just know that some people may not, differentiate between the two. So you have things called xenobiotics or xenoestrogens. There's lots of things that we come in contact with that are foreign to our body. And so when we think about the different chemicals that have been introduced over the last, probably 40 years, we have exponentially grown in the number of chemicals chemicals and plastics and things that we encounter every day. And a lot of those things are really great products that, have impacted our health for the good. But we just have to be really mindful of sometimes we can be overloaded with some of those things, particularly if our bodies are not in a place where they're really healthy and aren't able to detox some of that. So we're going to talk about how to have a healthy body so we can counteract some of the toxins we encounter. So when we think about xenobiotics, these are things that the body really doesn't recognize, and so the immune system can actually start to overreact to try to protect ourselves. And so when we think about our immune system having this reaction, that's where we can see a lot of autoimmune conditions start to take place. And we know, if you kind of follow the wellness world, we know that there are more autoimmune diseases and occurrences of that than ever before. There's more prevalence, certainly in the US and other developed countries. And we know that, obesity is at an all-time high. And before we get too far into the presentation, I want to make mention, because many people don't realize this, but our fat tissue is called adipose tissue. And when we encounter toxins that our bodies can't actually process or detox through the natural pathways, which we'll talk about today, those actually get stored sometimes in our fat or adipose tissue. And so people who do struggle with weight loss resistance and not being able to get those unwanted pounds off sometimes do have some of those extra chemicals and toxins and things on board. And what happens is the body recognizes that you've encountered that toxin and the body can't get rid of it. Maybe your kidneys or your liver aren't, working optimally. Maybe you're not drinking enough water or getting enough fiber in your diet. There could be a number of things. Maybe you're not sweating or exercising enough. And so it says, okay, we've encountered this toxin. We can't get rid of it. So we're going to encapsulate it in fat or adipose tissue, and we're going to go store it, usually in the midsection, usually in our, kind of core abdominal area. We're going to go store it there so that it doesn't hurt, whichever human you are. For me, we don't want to hurt Abby, so we're going to put all of those toxins in some fat tissue. And so it can be really difficult to lose that weight. So many of us do struggle with weight loss resistance because of some of that as an issue. It's not always just about calories. We have to, be concerned about counting chemicals too. And I talk a little bit about that later. So when we have these, reactions to toxins, we can have chronic inflammation, of course, skin problems, because skin is going to be a place where we try to detox those things that we can't expel, kind of naturally in our urine or bowel movements. We can have brain fog and fatigue, which is really common today. Of course, our blood sugar starts to try to compensate, and so we need more energy on board when we're trying to detox. And so for that, we need more blood glucose available, so our blood sugar goes up. We can have mental health challenges like anxiety and depression. Again, that weight loss resistance that many of us face today. We can have a body odor. So, if you eat a lot of spicy or herby foods, that sometimes the next day when you sweat, you can smell that. It's because the body is trying to get rid of that extra, food or spice on board. So you can have some persistent body odor that's really difficult. You can definitely have thyroid problems because so much of what we eat, particularly gluten and things like that, will have that mimicry where gluten really looks like thyroid tissue. And so the body, if you're, celiac, or if you have a sensitivity to gluten, you can start actually having antibodies that attack your thyroid. And so we see that as a really common thing. It's really particularly common for women with autoimmune and thyroid because women automatically have a different response in our immune system because we're designed to be able to carry children. And so we have a different response because, when we're carrying a child, even if you choose not to have children, which many people do, that's, a personal decision, our bodies are still designed for that capability. And so our autoimmune reaction, our immune immune system is designed differently and responds differently because, we have to be able to carry something within us that is not, 100% our DNA makeup. And so our autoimmune response after having children can certainly do a lot of damage to our thyroid. And that's something that we really look for postpartum. So that can be something that even if you haven't had children or choose not to have children, our autoimmune response and system can really be different and can impact us in different ways. So that's important to note. And then we can definitely have achy muscles and joints and just kind of really tissue type pain. If you have a lot of pain that feels like it's more of a tissue than maybe, muscle or joint, a lot of times that's considered fibromyalgic type pain. And you can have that not just with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, but you can have it because you have an overabundance of toxins that you're not able to actually process. And so those are some things to think about. So in 1938, the US government actually had some laws and federal regulations passed about the cosmetics industry. And the cosmetics industry is around a $4 billion industry in the US and worldwide. And so with this last bill only taking place in 1938, we really haven't had any updated legislation. And so today I'm going to be sharing some products that I personally use and that I personally like. I'm not suggesting that these are the only products that are healthy, but I am featuring one of these companies, which is Beauty Counter. And the reason is because they have become the most outspoken in terms of clean beauty products, and they're doing a lot of lobbying in the national arena, particularly in Washington, D.C., to have more legislation passed to be able to really protect people, particularly children, with products that we're consuming. So everyday household products, not just beauty products. And so I think it's important to highlight a lot of the advocacy work that they're doing because they're speaking on behalf of everyone's business and consumerism, not just their particular company. And so they have a never list, and these are some of the chemicals that they have chosen not to use in their products. And this is some of the top 23 chemicals that we encounter on a daily basis. And so I included this here simply because there are about 23 harmful chemicals that we encounter on a daily basis in our beauty products and household products that we don't often think about. The averages for women in particular, we tend to highlight these averages for women because women typically do use more products than men, but that's of course a broad generalization. That's not true of everyone. But women typically spend about 9 to 11 products, particularly when they're getting ready in the morning between makeup and hair products and beauty products. And so they typically spend that time using those products. And it's estimated that women, before they even leave the house, have been exposed to 300 to 500 chemicals in the morning in the products that they're using. And then statistically, research shows that men are between 200 and 300 on average. So of course, there are exceptions to that, but those are just the averages for men and women when we look at that in the US. And so I think that's important to highlight. I'm actually an outlier on that because I don't use a lot of beauty products, particularly since I started doing this clean living lifestyle. So I am not the norm in that study, but I do want to point that out because I do think we all know that we use a lot of products in our everyday lives, even if they're not beauty products. It takes about 26 seconds for chemicals or anything that we put on our body to actually reach our bloodstream. And so I think that's important when we highlight, the question of what's in our products, because when we put lotion or we put, a beauty product or we put deodorant or shampoo or any of those kinds of things on or in our body, then the skin is a really quick route to our bloodstream. And so it only takes a few seconds to get those things from the outside to the inside. And of course, we know once it's in the bloodstream, it can go out all over the body within minutes. And so it's important to think about, if you wouldn't eat the product, then you probably need to consider whether you should use the product on your skin or your body, because essentially you're still consuming it, even though no one would advocate that you eat your sunscreen or that you eat a beauty product. The effect can be the same because it's still getting into the body, and it actually can be more harmful because some of these things actually go directly to the bloodstream. And so you just want to think about that. Of course, that's a sensationalized example, but it does highlight the importance of knowing what you're putting on and in your body. It's all consumption. So your skin health is so important to protect your skin, right? We all know the commercials, protect the skin you're in. And so our skin is our body's largest organ. It is very absorbent, which is great. We need it to be. That's why we can give medications through the skin because it's so absorbent. But we have to be mindful of what we're putting on it, like I mentioned. And so not just beauty products, but even our clothing. If you buy clothing and you don't wash it beforehand, I would really encourage you to start washing your clothing before you wear it. Clothing oftentimes is, in shipping containers and boxes. It's been handled by a lot of people, and it has a lot of fabric, chemicals, and dyes, especially for children because of the, flame retardants that are required to be on there. If you have anything that's loose, particularly pajamas for children, if those are loose, then they're going to have a lot of flame retardants on there because those are the regulations. If you get the more fitted pajamas for kids that are more like a second skin, they have less, but they're still required to have flame retardants because of the concern of having, fires at night. And statistically, at some point there were, statistics that fires were more likely to happen at night. I don't believe that's true anymore, but there was a concern about that, and there was some advocacy and lobbying done to make sure that children's clothing were safe, but it didn't take into account all of those chemicals that we're putting on our children every night. Even after we wash some of those things, they're designed to stay on that fabric for the life cycle of that fabric. And so think about washing your clothing beforehand, particularly the things that stay really close to your body, like pajamas, like your undergarments. Those are going to be things that you're wearing more closely to your skin and for longer periods of time. You, again, want to think about if you wouldn't eat it, obviously, sensationalized example, maybe consider not wearing it. Sunscreen is important, but you want to aim for 15 minutes outdoors without sunscreen because you want to get that vitamin D synthesis. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin, really, it's a hormone, and that hormone is needed for all of the synthesis of the hormones that you have in your body. So it's a very, very important hormone. It's very important for all of the functions that you need in terms of creating neurotransmitters and having good gut health. And so you do want to have at least 15 minutes a day of some sun exposure without sunscreen so it can penetrate your skin. But you also want to make sure that when you do apply sunscreen that it's a healthy sunscreen and that it doesn't have a lot of harsh chemicals and things in it. You also want to check your skin from problem areas. If you have a rash, if you have, you know, skin disorders or discolorations or things like that that aren't from an injury, or if you have a lot of moles like I do, it's really important that you do a good skin check and that you are able to look at areas that you probably can't see, particularly on your back and on your feet, and kind of ironically on places where the sun actually doesn't hit a lot. We sometimes focus on the places that the sun is going to actually touch our skin, but oftentimes, particularly in certain places, you're more likely to have, based on your gender, because of some hormonal things and some genetic components, different spots where, melanoma or some other cancers or things might pop up. And so it's important to be able to have someone look at your back, look at your trunk, look at your feet for you. And the backs of your legs if you can't see those areas yourselves. And your skin is going to give you a really good idea of how healthy you are. So if you're having a lot of hormonal issues, or you're detoxing things that you're encountering, you may have a lot of acne, you may have some skin rashes, you may have some discoloration, and your skin is a really good barometer for how healthy and how well your body's processing. So definitely take time to check your skin. And your skin is also a really great way of detoxing. So that detox happens via sweat. So some of us don't like to sweat. Some of us don't like to talk about it. We don't like to be hot. But if you're not sweating every day, then you're holding on to more toxins than you really want to. And so whether you're walking around your neighborhood after dinner or whether you're actually physically exercising, it's important that you do get out, get some sunshine, and let your body sweat because that's what your body is designed to do. So some things that are really commonly toxic in our homes that we don't often think about are water bottles, especially plastic water bottles, plastic food containers, carpets because of all of the chemicals on there, pizza boxes, microwave popcorn, hand sanitizer, sofas, and strawberries. And so there are different reasons for each of these. And again, this slide could be an entire talk, by itself. So we don't have time to go into each of these, but a lot of it has to do with the exposures or the chemical change, like with the popcorn that happens. There's a chemical process that changes, and those bags that we sometimes put in the microwave are actually coated in chemicals, and so that microwave can activate those. Again, there's nothing here that you need to be alarmed about, but just aware of, and so you can start to make different choices. Strawberries in particular really hold on because they're really porous to chemicals and pesticides and things, and so later on I'm going to talk about the importance of washing your fruits and vegetables. So some first steps, I would tell you educate yourself on the things that you're using. So look at the products you're using every day. Look at how many things you typically are consuming or putting on your body. And then download the Think Dirty app. And I have a screenshot of what that looks like a little bit later. Download that and start scanning your barcodes to see what the ratings are. And the ratings are going to be about the chemical load. So you want to really try to aim for 1s and 2s on your ratings. Those are going to be in the green zone, and it uses a green, yellow, and red, so a stoplight coding system, which I think is really helpful. And so 1, 2, and 3 are usually in the green section, and that means they're good to go. You can use those pretty safely. 1s and 2s are the goal for me. I try not to use something above a 3. But you can if you can't get any other product, and sometimes we just have to use what we use, right? We want to reduce our plastic use. So not drinking out of plastic bottles, not heating things in plastic, not wearing things that have been covered in plastic, not doing a lot of dry cleaning that you have to do conventionally. You want to open up the windows in your home to air it out, particularly when it's been, very stuffy or rainy. You want to stop using candles and fragrances, Glade plug-ins and air fresheners, and the air fresheners you can put in your car and hang from the rearview mirror. All of those things that have scent are, definitely chemical. They're in nature, they're manufactured, and they're not good for the body. You want to choose organic things, products, and foods when you can. And you want to start swapping to healthier cleaning products, particularly. I know cleaning products and hand sanitizer have definitely been hot topics this past year with COVID-19. And you do want to make sure that you're cleaning absolutely, and you want to make sure that you're being able to, get rid of those toxins and those, viruses and different things. You just want to make sure that you're doing all that you can, right, to be safe and to be healthy. But you also want to make sure that you're not overusing chemical cleaning products either, because your body can become resistant, and all of the organisms that you're trying to target can become resistant to those. You want to try using houseplants. Those are great ways to actually start to introduce things in your home that can help get rid of some of those toxins, especially the off-gassing from sofas and carpets and furniture and things. You want to try to avoid using aluminum foil. You don't want to cook things in aluminum foil or reheat things in aluminum foil, because that's definitely something that's going to leach out into your food, just like the plastic would. And if you're like me, you probably grew up, or you probably have, heated or cooked things in the oven in aluminum foil. I know that was a staple in our house growing up, and so that might be difficult for you to kind of switch out of that mode. You also want to limit the use of your microwave. The microwave can be harmful in some, various ways. It's very controversial of whether microwaves are harmful or not in terms of the radiation that they give off. But even if you're not concerned about that, microwaves tend to reduce the nutrients that are in your food. So even if the radiation is a safe level, which is a hot topic of debate, it's still actually limiting your nutrients. And so you want to be mindful of that. try to reheat on the stove or in the oven. And then you want to, of course, use clean beauty products. There are a number of clean beauty brands out there. I'm going to mention several to you today. You want to wash the fabrics before use, like I mentioned. You want to try to drink filtered water in a reusable bottle, but you want to make sure that it's glass or that it's going to be a safe metal. Glass is not my favorite just because the water gets warm really quickly, and I don't enjoy warm water. You probably don't either. But you want to make sure that you're not using plastic a lot. And then you want to be cautious with pesticides in your home. For us personally, I know that this is not going to be, something that is popular amongst a lot of families, but we don't have pesticides sprayed in our home. We do because we live in the country, and it's important to not have, ticks and spiders and all of that. We do have our home sprayed on the exterior, but we do not have it sprayed on the interior because we do not want, our young children to be exposed to those pesticides in the home. That is a very personal decision like all of these others, but I'm just giving you some examples of what I do and what a lot of people do who are aware of these kinds of toxins and kind of how they want to approach it, because I think giving you examples is the best way to let you start to think about the choices you want to make. And then, of course, ditching and switching the different household products that you have. And so we want to make sure that you're not being greenwashed either, though. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But that's the process of using a lot of language, a lot of, pictures of plants and outdoors and the color green to make you think a product is clean and healthy when it actually may not be. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And I see y'all putting questions in. I'll definitely will get to those. So keep those coming. So some more steps. When you think about, other than the products that you buy and consume, the first line of defense in a physical way at your home is your entry mats at your doors. So make sure that you have an entry mat at your doors, in your garage, if you have a garage, at your front or back door, wherever you are coming in and out of your home. Make sure you have some entry mats, and make sure that if you can start removing your shoes, because most of the toxins, other than because of the furniture and building materials that we buy, most of the toxins are coming in on your shoes. So if you can take your shoes off and switch to slippers or something like that, you're going to be, just ahead of the game in terms of keeping toxins and chemicals out of your house. If you have young children who are on the floor a lot, that's very, very important, because that children spend their first 5 years, I feel like, on the floor. Children are most at risk between 0 and 5 of having toxin exposure because they are on the floor so much. They're rarely in a chair or on a couch. And so that's really important to think of. And that's the actual statistic that you can quote. 0 to 5 is that age range where you're really thinking about the carpets and what they can really access at that level. And so they're going to be getting a lot of toxins on or near them if they're in the floor a lot and you're wearing your shoes. Now, we were not perfect about that. I actually, when I first became a mom, didn't really even think about that. So definitely understand that I'm telling you this from a place of knowledge, not a place of I've actually 100% achieved any of this. So there's lots and lots of grace. You just want to try to avoid things when you can. You want to also dust frequently. We think about dust bunnies, and certainly it's really common to have a lot of dust in the South with all of the red dirt and clay that we have. It's just, there's so many areas and so many sources of dust, particularly when we're in more rural areas. And so dust can accumulate very quickly, and not only does it have dust bunnies and dust mites, but it also can have toxins. And so if you see that you have a lot of dust, and I definitely do sometimes, then that there are some extra toxins in your house, and it'd be really helpful for you to get that reduced, and make sure that you're putting in good filters in your homes so that it's filtering those toxins out. Even if you don't have allergies, having some of those filters in your air conditioning ducts that really work for allergens would be very helpful. And so you also want to prioritize a non-toxic mattress and bedding. We spend a lot of time in our beds, not only sleeping, but lounging, particularly in COVID-19 days. And so you want to make sure that you're prioritizing a it's kind of a sleep sanctuary where you have a non-toxic mattress and bedding. Because you're spending a lot of time in that environment, you also want to make sure you have non-toxic pajamas as much as you can. And I'm going to mention some other things, but those are some things that really could be impactful for your overall health. You want to switch to glass products whenever you can. Of course, if you have young children, or maybe you're caring for elderly patients or parents or things like that, obviously, glass may not be the safest, especially if you don't have something that has a protective coating on it. So use your judgment, but glass when possible. Try to avoid non-stick cookware. That is one of the first changes that we made in our house, because Teflon can be so detrimental to our health, and it is definitely a xenoestrogen, so it can definitely disrupt our endocrine systems. And I have low thyroid function, as well as some of my family members in my household, and so that was one of the first steps that we made. So we use ceramic, we use cast iron, we use glass, but we do not use non-stick cookware anymore, or Teflon. And so consider that. That would be a really big step if you could do that. Using natural hand soap and hand sanitizer is also really important. There's tons and tons of great options. I think of anything that's the easiest to switch out, it's hand soap. And then you also want to think about clean laundry products. Things like the big box brand names, the big box brand stores, obviously they're going to have more chemicals because it's cheaper to use those. And so you want to think about clean laundry products. You definitely want to try to just completely ditch your dryer sheets and your fabric softeners, because they have a lot of chemicals on board and are the cause of a lot of allergens in children and rashes and things. You want to ensure that your hair and skin products, of course, are clean. Hair dye is particularly important for women, and there are some emerging brands that can actually help with the hair dye. I know most natural hair dyes, most women don't like those, because if you're trying to cover up graying hair, the natural products tend to not work as well. But there are a couple of brands that have come out that have been really helpful for covering grays without the harmful chemicals. And just think about how porous your scalp is, and putting chemicals next to and on your scalp, every 6 to 8 weeks could be really it could be really helpful to have cleaner products there, because that is a really porous, absorbent area. Of course, you don't want to just think about your home. We spend a lot of time at work. We spend a lot of time in our car. I especially spend a lot of time in my car as a mom. And so you want to make sure that those places are clean, that they're dust-free, that they're mold-free. Particularly in the South, we have a lot of mold in our environment. And so it's important to kind of think about that, because if we have mold and viruses and things on board, it's going to be harder for our body to detox. You also want to try to avoid buying conventional coffee. And I'm a coffee drinker, so this is a hard one for me to share. But a lot of times, when you think about your fungal load and you think about mold or mycotoxins, we often don't think about our coffee as being a source of that. But when people are saying that they don't tolerate coffee well, and they think it's the caffeine, or they don't tolerate peanuts well, and they're thinking it's because it's an allergen or something like that, or maybe other nuts, a lot of times when you will actually Google or do a search on those products, it's because those are the highest foods that have mycotoxins in them. And so fungi actually, grow pretty abundantly on peanuts and on coffee. And so you could be having an overabundance of exposure to that. So if you switch to cleaner products or cleaner foods or cleaner coffee, you might actually be able to tolerate that really well. It may not be about the coffee, it may be about the fungal load that you're getting. So nourish your body. That is the foundation of health. And you want to really make sure that when you're nourishing your body, that you're drinking filtered and more alkaline water. That's really an easy purchase to make. You want to really aim for about half of your body weight in ounces a day in terms of your water consumption. Typically no more than 100 ounces, although you'll see a lot of influencers on Instagram telling you to drink about 128 ounces, to drink a gallon of water a day. You definitely want to make sure that you're tracking your water to see how much water you need, because 64 ounces for most people isn't enough, and that's kind of been our gold standard. But most people need more than that. if I'm in a clinical day or I'm teaching a lot, I'm going to need more water than if I'm just at my desk doing desk work all day. Because when we talk, when we move, that requires us to use more of our water because of our breathing patterns. And so the heavier we're breathing, the more water we're going to need. That's why we need so much when we're exercising. So definitely track that. You're going to find your sweet spot in terms of ounces per day. And you're going to kind of probably see that it fluctuates depending on what you're doing that day. But definitely track to see where you need to land. Eat the rainbow. So eat your veggies most. So water first, veggies most, and you want to make sure that you're eating the rainbow of foods. So we typically eat a lot of brown and beige food, and when we want to be healthy, we eat a lot of green food. But we often don't think about the reds, the purples, the yellows, and all of those other wonderful colors. And each of those colors represent antioxidants that we're not getting if we're not eating those colors. So focus on a whole food diet. Try to eat really good fiber because that's going to help you continue to have good bowel movements every day. I know we don't like to talk about that, but that's one of the biggest, most important detox pathways that our body has. And so we need to be able to eat that fiber and have those good bowel movements. It's not abnormal to go 2 to 3 days without a bowel movement, but it's not ideal. So you want to make sure that you're having 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. That makes you know that you're having those good detox pathways open and ready to get rid of some of those chemical exposures we encounter every day. You want to avoid processed and packaged food. You want to try to make sure that you're not drinking your calories. You know, a lot of us like soft drinks and teas and coffees and all of those wonderful things. Juices, when I say try juices, I mean really juicing your own fruits and vegetables, not the orange juice that you get at the grocery store. Try to count your chemicals as much as you're counting your calories, because 100 calories of junk food that's prepackaged is not 100 calories of fresh fruit and vegetables. In terms of your body processing those things for weight loss, obviously a calorie is a calorie, but your body is going to be much healthier with those healthy 100 calories than the 100 calories of a Snickers or something like that. You might want to consider intermittent fasting if that's something that appeals to you and your body is able to do it, because that really helps our body start to break down toxins and detox better. A lot of times that looks like, kind of widening your eating window, in certain parts of the day and then shortening it in others. We automatically fast because we don't eat at night. So we're all fasting at night. That's why we say it's a breakfast, because you're breaking your fast. So all of us fast, but we just might want to be more intentional about it. You want to really limit your sugars and inflammatory foods. Try tracking and keeping a food journal, because that can be really beneficial, particularly if you think you're having some allergies or just some adverse reactions to things that you're eating. I say most things in moderation. I think, we sometimes say all things in moderation, but there are certain things that probably aren't healthy for us, or they might be healthy, but they're not good for our particular body. And so try to do things in moderation. Try not to moralize food as being good or bad. We do that a lot with things, particularly with food. But food is just necessary. It's fuel for your body, but it also can be celebratory. It also can be comfort food. It also can be cultural. And so I don't take the approach that, food is only fuel. It definitely isn't for me. It's a big part of my life and of my family and celebrations and things. And so I think it's important that we, treat it as something that's important and special, but not just moralizing it or thinking about it as only fuel. And then, of course, if you need professional help with your nutrition, there are so many great resources here on campus that you can reach out to at UMC, both for faculty and staff as part of your employment benefits. So Suzanne Henson is one of our registered dietitians, and she does a great job with that. You want to make sure that you're nourishing your body. Gut health, like I said, is really important. Fermented foods, prebiotics, probiotics are so helpful to making sure you have good gut health, which is going to really help make sure that you're detoxing the things that we're encountering every day, because we can't always limit our exposure and we don't always know what we're being exposed to. But I also want to note here that your diet isn't just, what you're eating. It's also any of the other consumption that you're doing. So it's the news you're watching. It's the social media you're consuming. It's the people that are in your circle, right? We're most like the 5 people we hang out with. So it's really important that you're mindful of all of your consumption, not just, food and beauty products or health products. So another thing that I think is important is to clean your food. I actually learned this from my OBGYN a number of years ago. And, you know, he thought that wellness was a really important part, obviously, of pregnancy education. And so this is something that I have done and with a lot of great success. It actually kind of changes the way your food tastes too. But putting your food, especially your fruits and vegetables, in a bowl with a solution of vinegar and water, so 1 cup of vinegar to 4 parts water, and then adding some Celtic sea salt, so not sodium table salt, but Celtic sea salt until the water turns cloudy. So that could be a lot of salt depending on how much water you have in there and how much vinegar, and how big your bowl is, how much you're cleaning. But put that together, kind of swirl it around, and then add your fruits and vegetables to soak for a few minutes and watch some of those waxes and some of those chemicals actually come off those fruits and vegetables. Then you just want to rinse with cold water, dry, and store. And you know, put some paper towels there to absorb any moisture that you don't get off, and that can really prolong the life of your fruits and vegetables, but it also is going to help eliminate some of those exposures to chemicals and pesticides. This is kind of a just great 1-page Clean 15 Dirty Dozen. With the Clean 15, these are conventional based fruits and vegetables that you can feel pretty confident in buying without having to make it be an organic option. So obviously we have to make choices with our budgets about where we want to spend money on organic foods. And so the Clean 15 are things that you can buy conventionally that don't have to be organic, but you could if you wanted to. And then the Dirty Dozen are the things that you definitely want to prioritize being organic, because they tend to hang on to pesticides more frequently and with more kind of veracity than some of the others that you can have. And so it all has to do with the way that the skin and the protective layer on the fruit or vegetable, how permeable it is to those pesticides. And so things like pineapples, obviously, it's a really hard, thick skin, and so that's not going to be penetrated by pesticides as easily as maybe an apple or, you know, a grape. And so this is a great one that you can do a quick Google search and get this as kind of a little cheat sheet for you as you shop. So you also want to make sure that you're moving your body, that you're, you know, making sure that you're sweating every day. Like I said, walking, I think, is very underrated, both for health and for weight loss. You want to make sure that you're doing things to stay hydrated while you're exercising. You're going to need more water on those days when you're doing a lot of exercising, a lot of walking. You want to make sure that you're getting up every hour, because we can be so sedentary in our desk jobs. You want to make sure that you're really tracking your progress. I've mentioned that several times, because sometimes we don't see how far we've come. You know, things like parking in the back of your parking lot or taking the stairs are all great ways to start incorporating more movement into your day. Our bodies were designed to move, and we don't do a lot of that now. Of course, it helps if we put our phones down. We all, you know, have a lot of tech in our lives, and so putting that away and actually getting out and being more social, more moving can be helpful for our bodies. And then consider regular chiropractic care. I think that can be really important for some people. Obviously, it's contradicted in others. So do what's best for you, but I think if it works for you, it's a great option. It also helps keep your neurological system and just your body in balance. At least that's what I have found, and I think that's what a lot of research can support. Of course, all chiropractors aren't created equal, so make sure you interview someone who has a holistic approach and who's really going to be able to work with your body. And then again, I've mentioned it, but keep those detox pathways open. You know, make sure you're sweating, make sure you're drinking water. You know, look at your urine when you can, and make sure that it's a pale yellow. You don't want it to be too light or too dark, because you could be overhydrated or you could be under hydrated, you know, dehydrated, and that can really take a toll on your body systems, particularly your kidneys, when it's trying to help out your liver in this detox process. You also want to make sure that you're resting your body. I mentioned having your bedroom be a sanctuary. And so, you know, try to think about, you know, taking work and TV and devices and all of that out of the room, because that can be a big distraction and a source of blue light and EMF. And so you want to make sure that you have a sanctuary to sleep in. We spend a lot of time in our beds, you know, making sure that we're getting in bed by 10, because that's when our circadian rhythm kicks in and when restorative sleep happens between that 10 p.m. and midnight. If you need to catch up on sleep, go to bed earlier. Don't sleep in, because our bodies aren't designed to sleep in. Doesn't like that. Our bodies are designed to wake up with the sun. You know, if you're going to bed at night and you're sleeping the number of hours that you know, ideally should be sleeping, but you're still waking up not feeling rested, it may be time to reach out to your healthcare provider. You may be having a sleep disorder or some other thing going on with your sleep. But make sure that you really prioritize your sleep along with your water and your nutrition, because sleep is really the place where your body heals and restores itself. And so you really want to prioritize that. You can, you know, also do things like putting dust covers on your bedding to reduce allergens, you know, making sure that your room stays cool and dark and quiet. Those are all great things that you can do to support good sleep. And then you want to make sure that you're restoring the body. So there are a number of things that you could do. And for me, what I tell people is, if you're not enjoying it, then it's probably not beneficial. So, you know, research can tell us that something is beneficial for us, like reflective journaling, for example. But if you're miserable when you reflect, you know, journal, and you're feeling like it's a chore, then it's probably not giving you the benefit that, you know, it could be giving you, right? It actually could be counterintuitive to what you should be doing. And so if any of this feels like a chore or feels overwhelming, then just consider doing something else, because just because it quote unquote should be good for you or should be a healthy food doesn't mean it's good or healthy for you. It doesn't mean it's the right fit for you. So these are some things that you consider adding in: infrared sauna, red light therapy, chromotherapy, using lights as therapy, aromatherapy, things like essential oils that are medical grade, not from big box stores, you know, meditation. So many great things listed here that you could try. Even simple things like rolling your window down on your drive home today if it's not raining, or, you know, listening to soothing music, or maybe listening to really happy music, whatever is kind of your mood that you're in. And then building in good breaks. You know, we sometimes hit our alarm, you know, in the morning, turn it off, and then we're go, go, go all day long until it's time for bed. And we're really not designed to live that way. So even if meditation seems like it's not something that you want to try, maybe start with 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of a break in the morning where you walk around your building or your neighborhood. And then maybe in the afternoon do it again, and then maybe at night do it again, until you're giving your body some rest away from technology, away from, you know, work, and you're actually just kind of giving your brain and your body a break. So those are all important things. Know your health numbers. Well, BAMA screenings allow you to know your numbers, which is a wonderful, you know, opportunity and resource for you. And then use smart supplementation. You know, don't just take vitamins and supplements because you think that you need them. Make sure that you know your numbers and know what you do need for your body. You also want to reduce your EMF exposure. There's a lot that could be said about this. Again, this could be an entire class on its own, but, you know, it's important to think about getting out in nature to make sure that you're, you know, not always wearing wearable technology, that you're not always charging devices near you, that your laptop isn't directly in your lap, that you're not always using Bluetooth devices, because that's going to actually increase that, you know, radiation exposure. You just want to make sure that you're really cognizant of, you know, limiting the exposure that you can have to radiation. Of course, there's lots of other sources, but these are some things that are more directly tied to, you know, our electronics and handheld devices. You don't want to use your phones or laptops or things while they're charging, because that's going to give you more exposure. And you might want to consider, you know, keeping those things away from your bed, or putting, you know, things like this on airplane mode when kids are playing games on your phones or tablets or things. Um, you know, again, there's lots that could be said here, but just know that EMF exposure can really take a toll on your body, particularly if you're sensitive. So it's not true for everyone. Everyone doesn't have a sensitivity, but we all could benefit from the reduction of electromagnetic frequency. Even things like wearing blue light blocking glasses after 9 p.m. can be really helpful. Okay, and then greenwashing, kind of circling back to where we started. You know, it's really the intentionality of brands to make their, you know, marketing campaigns be kind of on trend, which is to be healthy, to be well, to have, you know, these, you know, kind of earth-friendly products. So not only that promotion of that they're good for us, but they're good for the planet. And so a lot of times you're going to see that kind of greenwashing language. You're going to see a lot of green coloring or maybe blue coloring. And so it's really important that you can spot that and have tools to check to see if it really is a clean brand. This is particularly targeted toward women, I think, and especially moms with babies. And so we haven't talked a lot about babies and baby products, but there's so much that could be said about that. And of course, we use a lot of products and things on babies, baby wipes. I would avoid baby powder. Typically that's not needed. You've got diaper cream. There's definitely different options for that. Diapers certainly need to be, you know, something that has less chemicals in it because babies live so much of their life in diapers. And so those are some things to consider if you do have a baby at home. But just be on the lookout because we all can kind of fall into this greenwashing regardless of any of our demographics. This is something that's being targeted to everyone here in the US particularly. And so you can use the Environmental Work Group website and app. They have a new app that you can use to see what your product's ratings are. So I mentioned that stoplight, red, yellow, and green coding, and you want to kind of aim for 1 and 2 and 3 is okay. So I challenge you this weekend to download these apps and go use the scanners, use the barcode scanners to see where your products rate. And don't panic if they have high ratings, because I definitely did this a few years ago and had some really, really high ratings, and I was shocked, honestly. So don't let it panic you. Just decide how you want to make a smarter choice moving forward. And then also want to talk about kind of this notion of, you know, recycling. And, you know, recycling really should be the last option. We want to really think about our choices. So there are a lot of R's that you can think about here, and I even added a few, but rethink your choices in terms of what you consume. Refuse things. You know, if you're like me, I'm a people pleaser, and so if someone hands me something, I would just be so embarrassed to tell someone no, like I don't want to take that free thing. And so I used to have so many freebies because I wouldn't ever say, no, I don't need that, thank you though. Or, you know, you might be, maybe you get, you know, pins and things from conferences and you take those, or, you know, you take the shampoo bottles and things when you're at hotels when we travel. You know, those are kinds of things that you can refuse, especially single-use items. We want to reduce our consumption. We want to try to reuse anything that we can. We want to refurbish or repair things before we replace them. We want to try to repurpose items. I think that's a really fun thing to do, especially if you are creative, or you know, have children. Children, I think, are all creative. So those are some good things you could try. And then recycle as a last option. But also think about regifting. I know that that's not in vogue. People might think that that's impolite, but if it's never been used and you receive it, I don't think there's anything wrong with regifting. I think that's really considerate to think of someone else who might actually enjoy that product more. You might want to recover, and not just like recover upholstery, but you might want to recover things that maybe you think are too far gone. So you kind of rescue. That might be another word you could use. Resell items maybe that you don't want to use any longer. Make returns if you still have tags on things and it's within the policy to do returns. I know with COVID that changes a lot, but maybe make returns. And there's even things like, of course, to keep the R theme, some people will say rot, to let things actually be compostable. About 40% of what we consume and purchase can actually be composted. And so the bureaucracy of needs, I am a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so anytime I see one of the renditions, I like to include it. But here you can think about, you know, trying to use what you have and borrow and swap and thrift and make before you buy. And I think that's a really important creative way. And your budget will really thank you. So as we're closing up, before we do some, you know, questions and answers, we may go over time, and if you can stay, please do. I will definitely stay for questions and answers. These are some products that I particularly love. You can use these dry, you know, wool balls here for, you know, the replacement of bounce sheets or things like that, dryer sheets, glass Tupperware instead of plastic. I've tried every, you know, natural deodorant or antiperspirant on the market, and this is my favorite. So I do support this one for sure. It was created by an OBGYN. who really saw a need in helping, you know, people be able to have a comfortable experience wearing a natural deodorant, but who could not use some of the others on the market. If you've tried natural deodorant before and it didn't work well for you, it's probably because of the baking soda. A lot of deodorants use baking soda in it, and I don't know very many people who can tolerate the use of baking soda every day on such a sensitive area. The skin around your armpit area is very fragile in the sense that it's thin and it absorbs a lot, which is why it's important. This is one of my favorite swaps, to switch your deodorant as soon as you can. If you notice you have a lot of body odor, and you're probably going to, because we all pretty much wear antiperspirant, so it's blocking those sweat glands and ducts. So when you start using a natural deodorant, those are not going to be blocked from that any longer. And so you might want to think about doing an armpit detox. I know it has a silly name, but try Googling that and you will get a recipe and a protocol for doing an armpit detox. Once you do that, you'll be able to wear natural deodorant. But if you don't do that and you've been a long-term wearer of one of those clinical grade antiperspirants, you're going to struggle at first, and make sure you don't have baking soda in it. This is my favorite all-natural toothpaste. They have a lot of other great products as well. So does Loom. This is Beauty Counter's Flawless in 5. So this is their makeup brand. Obviously, they have many more products than this, but this is a very simple way, an economical way to start replacing some of your beauty products. And of course, they have a lot of other things too. They have their own new deodorant line. Their sunscreen, which is a favorite of mine. So there's lots of great products from each of these companies. I'm just highlighting one product that I really enjoy. Drops is another great one. I love this one because who does not love having the convenience of these little pods? A lot of times natural cleaners and natural detergents are going to be liquid or powder, and that's not the most friendly when you wash a lot of clothes. And I love these pods. And so this is an economical and earth-friendly option. Branch Basics is also another good company in terms of having cleaning products that you can use. There are many out there, but this is one that's very popular and has really good ratings and reviews. This is my favorite water bottle in terms of, you know, being able to carry it easily. It's a Hydro Flask. I think it keeps the drinks cold. It's pretty safe and pretty economical. And it also does not have the sealing problems that you can have with like the Swell water bottles and things. If you've ever tried those, I'm a product researcher. If I, you know, had another career, I could definitely do product research work because I like to try things out and tell people if it works or doesn't. And this one's my favorite. And then of course, this is thinking about switching from this Teflon to a stainless steel pan for, you know, that non-stick coating. We don't want to keep consuming that. And then, of course, here's some other things here. Filtered water, essential oils, using Celtic sea salt because it has the 34 to 36 nutrients and minerals that we really need. Try using organic cotton, not synthetic fabrics. You know, people who shave, particularly if you shave every day, Dr. Bronner's has a really good shaving soap that I've personally used and recommend. Magnesium is great for the body. Of course, you have to watch your intake because that can impact your heart and your electrolytes, but an Epsom salt bath is really helpful for detox. For women who use feminine hygiene products, that's very important, that, you know, something you're putting on or in or near your body is going to be organic. This is a huge source of toxin and chemical exposure for women. And this is my favorite sunscreen. A lot of times you have to be really careful that you don't burn. So always test a new sunscreen out, particularly if it's natural, because it's not going to work in the same way that some of those other conventional ones do. If you can thrift because it's going to have less of an environmental impact, but also they have less toxins and chemicals. It's also really friendly for your budget. And then one of my favorite hand sanitizers is this spray here, which is Dr. Bronner's. There's a lot of different flavors and scents and things of their products, but this scent here is lavender. It's natural and it has a 1 rating on the scale, so it's really safe and effective. Here are some other accounts to follow on Instagram when you want to think about doing clean product swaps. Crunchy and Curious is a great one. Instant Loss for clean eating. These are the two apps that I've mentioned today that you can look at, the Think Dirty and the EWG's Healthy Living app. And then if you're on Instagram, I think it's a great source for information. Of course, you have to vet it and do your own research, but these are some hashtags to follow to get more information and more accounts. And then I want to close before we take questions and answers with this quote, because so much of this can be overwhelming and, some of this may be a lot of new information for you, to really focus on what you can control, right? And so start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And don't get overwhelmed in all of the possibilities of what you could change, and just think about what are the next steps that you want to take in making small changes every day. And it really does add up. And for me, I've been on this journey for about 5 or 6 years now, and I can tell you it did not happen overnight, but slowly but surely I started making one clean swap until my health and my wellness improved, and my lifestyle looks really dramatically different from 5 or 6 years ago. But it was a long process, so don't compare your page 1 to someone else's page 100. So that's my encouragement for you. We would love for you to follow us on our social media channels. Ashley Bowman's on this call, and she does a phenomenal job of managing these for the office. And so think about following us on social. And then if you're interested in health and life coaching with me, if you'd like to have that as one of your benefits, it's free as a UA employee, and we'd love to have you. Just send me an email if you're interested. And now I would love to answer your questions. So let me go to the question box. Okay. What about enjoying sweets like chocolate? Doesn't chocolate have antioxidants? Should we buy organic, dark? Does it matter? Yes, I love chocolate. I wouldn't give chocolate or coffee up for anything. And so dark chocolate, 80% or greater in cacao. So dark chocolate's the best. And there are a lot of great brands. Justin's is a great brand. I'm not plugging Manna Grocery, but I'm just telling you that's where I can easily get it here in Tuscaloosa, because we don't have a lot of natural health food stores. I'm not affiliated in any way to any of these products, but just sharing what works for me. They have delicious chocolate there. And the staff are very friendly. If you have a question about anything, just ask and they'll direct you in the right path. They can really do some good teaching there. So ask about that, but Justin's is a good one. And one I personally use. What do you recommend for achy joints as we get older? I have a talk on this, and so you might want to check it out, because it's an hour-long talk on how to really take care of your muscles and joints and things as you age. But I would say water and movement and sleep are going to be the 3 things that are very good for you to start with. And then think about reducing your inflammation, because most of our illness and most of our aches and pains are really originate from inflammation. So I would start there. What do you think of Thrive Market and Grove Collaborative for clean products? I think that they do have some good products, but I think that you have to really be careful of which ones you order, because they have things like Mrs. Meyer's, and Mrs. Meyer's does not have good ratings on the EWG. It is a brand that I personally think is greenwashed. So you have to check each and every one of those products and see what works for you. And not all products are created equal. So even though Mrs. Meyer's might have a 9 rating in dish soap, their hand soap might be better. And that's often the case. So don't just check the brand, but actually check the brand and the product. And then sunscreen brand, I mentioned, I really like the one from Beauty Counter, but that is a really individual choice, because some do not work well. The brand that I use for me is not the brand that I can use for my children, is not the brand that I can use for my spouse. And so you're going to have to, unfortunately, probably spend some time and some dollars actually purchasing and trying them out before you go out in the sun. So test a patch on your arm with a couple of different brands and see what helps you the best. And just know that that might not translate to your friends and family. I've made that mistake, so try it out before you go on vacation. You don't want to be sunburned. Is it important to use aluminum-free toothpaste? Yes, and my disclaimer is that I don't use toothpaste with fluoride in it. So that is a very personal choice and not one that is backed up by my nursing degree. So do your own research and talk to your dentist. But I do try to use all natural toothpaste, aluminum free, as free as it can be with my toothpaste, and fluoride free for us. And I know that that's controversial, particularly for children and cavities. So I would definitely recommend doing your research on that one. Oh, and you're welcome for the answer about the achy joints. Okay, I think I got all of the ones in the Q&A, and now let me turn to the chat. And y'all please keep them coming. I'm happy to stay and answer your questions. But for those of you who need to leave, you will get your credit. You're welcome to go as you need to. Okay, let's see. Yes, if you'd like the slides, please reach out and we will get those. They will be probably sent out from the office from Nikki Bush. So look for that email. And I think Ashley also put a comment in there. So if I contradicted what she said, follow Ashley's instructions. What about popcorn kernels that are air popped? Air popped is better. Hydro flask, yes, is my favorite for water. Hardwood flooring is better, typically in general, less toxic and better for allergies. So most allergists are going to tell you not to have carpeting in your house. We do have carpeting and rugs in our house, so I don't always 100% follow my own knowledge, but you know, it's a choice that you make. But definitely carpeting is going to have more chemicals and hold on to more allergens. So hardwood, or having like a tile, or you know, maybe even a safe clean vinyl could be really good. We have a question about clean eating from Karen. Karen, can you let me know if I helped you with the good first step? Let me know. Okay, I think Karen had to leave, but maybe, hopefully we answered what the first step is. I would always say choose organic fruits and vegetables, eat more of a plant-based diet, and drink water. Okay, let's see if we've got any more. Oh, thank y'all for the kind compliments and feedback. Sunscreen that I use for my children, I try to avoid ones that spray. So when you're choosing you know, kind of your sunscreen or any kind of product for kids, kids do not close their eyes or their mouths or their nose very well. And so I have 5 children. If you don't know me in my day-to-day life, some of you on here do. But for those of you who don't, I have 5 children who are all very different, but none of them can actually make sure that it's not getting in their faces, their eyes, their nose, all of that, their mouths. So don't use anything that you have to spray on a child, and then just try to pick the best that you can. Some of my kids do really well with the Beauty Counter sunscreen, and some of them have to have more of an SPF, and so I use Neutrogena, which is not the cleanest, but they are susceptible to skin cancers. That's a really huge issue in our family on both sides, and so I opt for more chemicals over the risk of cancer. So I have to use a higher SPF of the Neutrogena for my fairer complected children. The ones that don't burn, I can use the Beauty Counter. Parchment paper is a good replacement for aluminum with baking. It is more troublesome in actually cooking, but it's healthier. And then how do you check for mold? Just visually spot check, because if you get the test kits to check for mold, which is what's recommended, if you don't spend a good amount of money on those, it's going to test positive for mold because we live in Alabama. So just make sure that if you think you have a problem, that you reach out to a remediation team, and that you get a good visualization, because usually you can see if you've got water damage or things. So check your sinks, check anywhere that you're going to have a lot of water exposure, and that can be a good first step. And I'm happy to answer that offline to you if you have more questions. But you're going to test positive with mold in Alabama because that's the environment that we live in, unfortunately. In the South, we have a lot of humidity. Thank you. Thanks for the information. What are good protein powders? Are they good? So protein powders can be, but they can have heavy metals in them. So you want to make sure that you actually are really comfortable with the protein powder that you have, the company that you're using, and that you make sure that it doesn't test positive for heavy metals. And so there are some great ones out there. There are some at 5-Star Nutrition. There are some at Mana Grocery. There are some online that you can purchase. I personally use Herbalife Nutrition as one. Now, I don't know that there's a lot of data to support that it is clean. So, you know, that is not something that has been vetted to say that they don't have a lot of heavy metals in them. But that is one thing that you want to make sure of, the packaging, but also and how they're sourcing their ingredients, because you could have exposure to chemicals or toxins in both of those routes. And then, do you have a list of brands that you can buy with confidence from other areas than makeup, like Beauty Counter? I like Beauty Counter. I like Young Living. I like Standard Process for vitamins and supplements. I like Dr. Ben Lynch's vitamins and supplements, because sometimes you have to use more than one brand to get all of those supplements and things. I like Dr. Bronner's for a lot of household goods. I like Branch Basics for clean household products. I also like Young Living for clean household products. I like Drops for the laundry detergent. What else? Does that help, Patricia? Do you have others? Those are the ones that come to mind, and some of the ones that I mentioned today. All right, I think I answered all of the questions so far, but again, I'm really passionate about this, so I'm happy to stay on if y'all have other questions. I remember the first few times that I started researching this, and I felt like I didn't have a community to ask, so I spent a lot of time alone on the internet, and I definitely have tried a lot of things, so I can understand you might have more questions. Okay, brand of natural deodorant. Yes, I like Lume, or Lume, I think is how she pronounces it, Lume. And it's like a pit paste, but it also can be put other areas, because she's an OBGYN, so she was helping patients that suffered from body odor. And Eric, that is for for natural deodorant, there are scented and unscented options. So it's not all florals, but a lot of them are. How long do your wool balls last? I got mine from Amazon, and I use them a lot. We have 7 people in our household, so I wash a lot of laundry, and I've had mine for 3 years, and they're still doing great. And I think they came with 4 or 6 in the package for maybe $10 or $15, Tammy, so they did great. Thank you, Carmen. Thanks, Bridget. Thanks for the feedback. I appreciate that. Y'all, if there were things that I didn't address, or things that you were thinking this talk would be about and I didn't get to that, please feel free to put those topics in the chat or to email me. And when we offer this class again, I'll be sure to update it and include those items too. All right. Any other last questions or comments? Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Christy. Yes, it is a process for sure. You have to just baby step your way. It does take a while to swap some of these things out. All right. I don't see any last questions or comments, so I just want to say thank you so much for those of you who took time to be here today, and certainly for those of you who stayed on a little bit longer. I hope this was helpful to you. If you think of questions after the webinar ends today, please feel free to reach out. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful weekend and happy ditching and switching. Uh-oh, I think we have one more question. Let's see. Oh, thanks. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.